Redstone Federal Credit Union, we do things a little differently. We're focused on people rather than profits. We keep our promises, better rates, lower fees, personalized service, because we're people helping people, adding value to everything we do, helping you reach your financial goals, achieve your dreams, and live brighter. Redstone Federal Credit Union.
Families are more stable when they're coming from homes versus when they're coming from situations where the family may be renting.
Having a home is very important. So we invest in the bricks and mortar, but the big investment is in the human beings that are impacted by the people who have an opportunity to have a home, to establish stability, and to raise a family.
My door opportunity happened for me when I took the first step in getting the application, because that began the process of enabling me to hope for something better than what I had. And if you follow through, all doors become open to you. And you start feeling like it's nothing that you can't accomplish. But to own a home and you fill it with love, that's everything.
It was something that I hadn't imagined this part in my life. I would be walking into my own I helped build home. It was something that I could never imagine in all my 45 years of living, that I would be able to walk my sons into a house that their mom had a part of building. Like, that part I didn't see for us as a family.
It kind of multiplies what one individual or one family can do with matching grants. So there's a practical business tactical side, but that is completely outweighed the first time you see keys handed to a homeowner and you feel, yes, this was the right thing to do.
With God, Habitat is everything. Give you a chance to find out what you're made of. It gives you opportunities you otherwise would not have been able to achieve, and it gives you an opportunity to work towards it. It's not just handed to you.
My door of opportunity, it was putting Julia in a better environment. Me being a homeowner, I don't have to keep switching houses, switching homes. I know I'm set in one spot.
I love my house.
I guess I was scared to step out. So when I found out that I had the opportunity to purchase my own home and walk those boys in there, that I had a part of doing that, oh my God, I just sit back and just look at my house and I just be like, Lord, who would have ever thought that Shamika Query would be sitting in her own home, her home that she built from the ground up.
I pray a certain prayer, and it says, Thy kingdom come on earth. And I see Habitat as one way we can help that happen. We can be examples. We can be involved. It's something that we can't do on our own, but with others, joining together. When you're at the house dedication or turning over the keys and you see all the people involved, you realize that God is with us and behind all of this.
That's one of the great things about this organization. It's both spiritual, it's loving, but it's practical and it's organized. That's a rare combination to have all those aspects into one organization.
The way I would encourage others to support Habitat would be first to ask themselves the question, what is their deepest why? And if that why has anything to do with making an impact on families, making an impact on the community, or finding ways to use the resources with which they've been entrusted to make a difference, to make sure that their legacy has some part of it that directly impacts the world around them.
Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate this opportunity. When Denise reached out to me, I was really honored at just the thought that I was considered for this. And so she said, you're doing a series of, what kind of book has changed your life? And that was really easy for me. What's even better, what's even more fitting about this crowd here is I was introduced to this book back in 2002, right after I'd gotten my real estate license. I was taking a class in Memphis on growing wealth through residential real estate. And one of the speakers, listed off a handful of books that were life-changing, and you just absolutely need to go home and read these books. And this was one of them. This is the one that stuck with me. He spit out a few little details about, it's full of statistics and stories and things that you can relate to and apply to your own life. So that works for me. I'm a research buff. I like history. I like statistics. I like details that I can kind of crunch my brain around here. So The Millionaire Next Door is the book that changed my life. Of course, 2002, roughly 20 years ago. That's my real estate career to date. I've got about 20 years in this. I was still doing hardwood flooring at the time. I think you mentioned I had a hardwood floor company. I've been self-employed since 1995. So I was already out there humping it, trying to make something go before I got introduced to this book. But I had some, I had some boundaries. I was just a simple carpenter. Actually, I even started with painting before I got into that. But I always knew that this self-employed route was going to be an angle for me. And so this book has certainly helped. Now, it was published in 1996, so there's a lot of dated information in there. I know they're giving away a copy of the book today, and it's been updated. I think the preface was updated about 10 years ago or so. So, there's now there's a quote in the front from Bernie Sanders, so there's a few other things. But still, if you take the time to read this book, you're going to have to apply 20 years to it because nobody has JCPenney cards anymore or credit cards like that. Nobody's using Diners Club credit cards anymore. So a lot of that stuff just doesn't fit to the story. By Thomas J. Stanley, PhD, and William D. Danko, PhD. Through here. Covered most of this stuff already. Bill Jake's Realty, I had to name it after myself, why not? I had somebody once say, well, I don't want to work for a company that's named after some dude. And I'm like, well, Keller Williams or Bob Parks or John Jones. Okay, I get the point. Yeah, those guys are doing just fine. Whenever I describe who I am, I always like to reach back to the husband and father. That's who I am first. That's where most of my emphasis is in life. My motivation is because my wife and kids. That's why I get up and do what I do every day. So I can't ever forget that. You got the hardwood flooring. When I was introduced to the book, I actually started practicing real estate full-time in 2010. I've gotten really involved with a lot of different organizations. By 13, I was serving on the board at the Middle Tennessee Association of Realtors. I've served on more boards than I can probably account for right now. I stepped down from Main Street last year after 2 terms. I'm currently the president of the Association for the Preservation of Tennessee Antiquities. That's always hard to say, but I stick with the preservation stuff a lot on my side. And that kind of makes me want to touch on the networking part. Another reason I'm so happy to be here with you guys is this is what you're doing. You're networking. And this has probably been one of the strongest things in my career that I've dealt with is hanging out with my peers. And it seemed kind of crazy in the beginning to, show up with a room full of 100 realtors. It's like, we're all fighting for the same money. Why am I hanging out with you guys? you got to work together. We're all working together. We all have the same goal to get those clients to the closing table. And so the networking is a big key. Sorry, Gabriel just showed up, one of the agents that works at Bill Jakes Realty. He and Beth showed up for a little support today, and I really appreciate you guys being here. Anyway, so networking. Only point I want to make to that is I hope every one of you in this room is doing business with at least 3 other people in this room, because your success kind of depends on each other. You're going to help each other prop your businesses up. So, you know, do more than just hang out and have drinks together. You got to do business together. Give your money to the people who are giving you money. But you're already on the right track because you're here. So I won't hammer that in too much further. I put on here, and I try not to get ahead of myself with too many thoughts going at once, but I put on the bottom here, I flipped at least 1 house a year for the last 11 years. I keep swearing I'm going to quit doing this. But one of the reasons I pointed that out, and we'll touch on it a little deeper inside, is you need more than one income. You can't just be living on one income. You need to be investing somewhere. And these are points that are brought out in this book. A lot of this may sound like my opinions, but I'm really basing everything I'm going to tell you today off of what's inside this book. I just don't want to do it like it's a book report and check off too many little boring statistics. Multiple streams of income is huge. That's the reason I went to that class 20 years ago about gaining wealth through residential real estate. You need, you know, they were telling us, you can be a realtor, you can make all this money in commissions, but you need to be making money with rental properties as well. You need to have income from multiple different streams, or you're just never going to get there. Now, you can build a bigger team, and that's another way to get your income flowing from different directions. But for the sake of the book, you need multiple streams of income. Okay. A little light reading for you here. This is just what's on the inside of the cover of the book. And it really covers a lot of this. This is a primer for amassing wealth through frugality. Being frugal is one of the key points of this book. That's pretty boring. It's, you know, you wish you had like a really cut and dry answer of like, how am I gonna become a millionaire? Not by eating cans of soup, you know. Well, it's part of my formula. I love to eat out. I love going and spending big money on fancy food and wine. It just makes me feel like I've arrived, you know, and I just enjoy those sort of things. But about 3 days a week, I eat Campbell's soup. I balance it out, you know. I try to save money, and I try to be mindful of saving that money everywhere I can. You just can't overstate, and this book tries to push that point home. I hope you all pick up a copy and read it, but I hope I impart enough of it on you today that that part sticks with you. Frugality is really the key here. So move right into the book itself a little bit. And where it starts and where it begins is picture this millionaire. Picture a million. What do you think a millionaire looks like? You can see the fancy suits and the Rolexes and all that. And those people do exist. But they interview people. They interviewed, you know, I don't remember exactly, a couple hundred millionaires. Of course, they had to interview the ones that showed up. So maybe the statistics are skewed ever so slightly, because how many millionaires really want to show up to a questionnaire? I don't have time for that. I'm too busy. So they probably skewed their results a little bit and got some of the more frugal guys. But they started off with this definition of the UAWs and the PAWs, the under accumulators of wealth and the prodigious accumulators of wealth. For example, well, I don't know if my example's great here. I'm starting to question my note. You know, physician can be a prodigious accumulator of wealth. Plumber, more often than the physician, in their examples, is going to be the type of person who's accumulating a lot of wealth. You know, they tell you the stories are great because you can visualize all these guys. You know, they tell a story about Mr. Plumber who lives in a neighborhood, and it's a fancy neighborhood, and all of his neighbors probably look down on him. But truth be told, he's probably the richest one of them all, because one of the issues they go into that it's kind of a tricky one is, when did you enter the workforce? When did you start accumulating money? When did you start putting back some money? Well, the plumber probably started at age 18 or 19. He probably didn't go to college. He probably got to work a little quicker. He didn't accumulate debt from school. And more importantly, he didn't accumulate the lifestyle choices that you get whenever you become a professional. I know we're talking to the young professionals here, so I'm not knocking professionals. I'm a professional now. I'm no longer a carpenter. But just be mindful of these things. The sooner you start socking away money, the sooner you're going to get there, the sooner you're going to arrive. That seems too simple. And it is a little overly simple. There's a lot more to go along with this. Other things that you might assume wrong about millionaires. Most of them were first generation rich. Most of the people that they interviewed got their millionaire status in their generation. It was not handed to them. Most of the millionaires who had it handed to them are UAWs. They're under accumulators. They're spending it. They're blowing through it because it was given to them, because they don't know how to save it now. They're spending it and they're enjoying it. And there's plenty of people out there that have inherited multi-millions, and it might take them the rest of their life to spend it. So they're still going to be rich. No big deal. That's great. But if you're not already rich and you want to get there, and there's no chance of a rich uncle giving you that money, here's where we got to focus on how to get there. There's also this assumption that, well, most of the wealth in America belongs to people who've been here since, the Mayflower came over. Those landowners that got land grants and now, their family's been rich for 7 generations. You can picture that person I'm talking about. It's not really real. It doesn't really work out that way. Just like the last one I said, most of these millionaires are first generation. So this idea that old money sticks around for generation after generation is really not true. The statistics prove that it's wrong. And the mindset portion here on the bottom. Conversely, people of modest backgrounds who don't believe they have a chance of building wealth. It's kind of a mindset I was in before I read this book. I'm a measly carpenter. I'm working as hard as I can. I eventually built a crew of 8 guys working for me, but we still had this cap. We couldn't go any further. I could only do so many jobs a week. I could only hire so many people, and I just couldn't grow beyond it. That mindset was holding me back. And again, why I'm so thrilled about this book is it really did make the difference. The 30-year-old me reading this book found that, there's a formula here. There's a chance I could do this. So you can't make excuses. You got to be careful what you believe. That's the biggest point I want to make on this. Your assumptions about what it takes to become a millionaire could be wrong. And I don't know if a millionaire is necessarily all that wealthy anymore. $1 million in this world gets you my neighbor's house, or something. It's not going to last that long. So maybe that part of this book is a little outdated too, but we can still focus on that first million, Here's a big part of the show that really sitting at home for me. Self-employment is huge. It's a huge variable in becoming wealthy. Obviously, if you are a cog in someone's machine, you're only going to go so far. So finding a way to become your own boss is key. And I love how they go into all the stories and little anecdotal stuff. And they had a really great story on this point in there. Mr. North and Mr. South, they love using these made up names. They talked about this guy who worked for a printing company. He really wanted to break out. He really wanted to become wealthy. He really wanted to be self-employed, but he worked for a printing company. What do you get? How much more stuff can you print? I work for the 3 biggest guys in town. How can I compete with them? Well, you got to think outside the box a little bit. And in this example, he used that, well, what is it? What's the thing that every print shop needs? They need clients, and apparently they're all focused on their print jobs. Well, this guy starts a business matching clients with print shops and creates his own business. So there's niche marketing out there. There's things that you can find, even inside of the business you're currently in, that you could fill a niche, fill a void, and create a whole new business entity. So keep thoughts in mind like that. I kind of touched on point 2 in the opening there about the underaccumulators of wealth. Many self-employed people enter the workforce sooner than professionals. Now, I don't want to mix up the fact that, you know, self-employed and professional, they're not opposites. You can be a professional self-employed all day long. So pardon if some of these notes that I made read a little funky here, but for the purpose of it, self-employed don't accumulate as much debt. They get into the workforce sooner, and they have the opportunity to accumulate wealth faster. Now, the professional degree, I did clarify, it's an excellent option, but you're still going to need to save more money faster, which being a professional certainly can lead you in that direction. I mean, if you're making better money because you have this professional degree, you need to be setting it aside faster. And we'll get into a piece of the formula of that here in just a bit. This last one on this slide is also a pretty important piece. Self-made millionaires unknowingly hurt their children's potential to remain wealthy by trying to give them a better life. Every parent wants their kid to have a better life. You know, Randy is here talking about habitat, you know, and that stuff hits home. I won't go too deep into it, but suffice to say, I didn't grow up wealthy. And I understand that, you know, I want to give my kids a much better life than I had. But I'm so acutely aware of the fact that I don't want to hobble them. I don't want to limit their potential because they didn't have to go out and work for it like I did. So, you know, sometimes that difficult background is the piece that'll push you forward faster than anybody else. That you're not going to settle for this kind of stuff. And you're going to do better than what you had. Yeah, and it can lead to higher consumption lifestyle. That's a big deal. You know, if you give your kids everything, they're going to be used to everything. So next slide here goes into frugality. And this is stuff that I pulled straight from the text, essentially. It's pretty simple. But they introduce all these characters and tell you all about these different millionaires. And they tell you how they prepared for the interviews, especially the $10 million guys that came in. They bought Bordeaux wines and fancy caviar, and they wanted to have all the things that these decamillionaires, they called them, would enjoy. They made the assumptions as well that this is what these kind of guys are going to eat and drink. And they offered the, you know, the big rancher some caviar. He's like, no, do you have any club sandwiches? You know, they offered him wine and he wants Budweiser. Most of these self-made millionaires are not living this lifestyle. I know I'm hammering this home a little heavy here, but the majority of people who have amassed over $1 million in their lifetime are just not living this lifestyle of spending it as soon as they get it. They're socking it away. They're putting it away as fast as they can. And that last little piece there, they gain their wealth through frugality, and they'll maintain that affluent status the same way. You have to hang on to it. You have to hang on to it. I'm burning through my slides here, guys, so I'll try to keep you entertained as much as I can through this. I don't want to be boring. This is one of my favorite slides. How much should I be worth? I probably should have done the math a little differently. You know, your age times your yearly income divided by 10. That's what you should be worth right now. Easier way to do the math in your head is divide your age by 10 and multiply it times your yearly income. You can do that in your head a little bit easier. For me, a 50-year-old guy, well, I'm not going to tell you how much I make a year, but I'm there. I've met this. I'm doing it, and I'm living up to what the book has told me to do. Now, I love this quote. Even if you earn $2 million a year and you're worth $1 million, technically you're a millionaire, but spiritually you're an underaccumulator of wealth. It's likely your millionaire status is temporary. Again, I probably touched this point enough that I'm starting to hammer it home. You can't spend more than you make, obviously. These things sound way too simple. So I hope you enjoy some of the stories that go along with them, and dig into this book for yourself, even if it is dated. You need to budget every possible expenditure. One of the questions they asked every one of these guys was, do you budget? Do you know how much you spend every year on food? Do you know how much you spend every year on housing, on all these categories of things? And all these self-made guys said, yep, absolutely. I know exactly how much I'm spending on that. And I'm making cuts here, I'm making cuts there. It seems crazy, but I mean, we all know that the Starbucks every day kind of situation, I mean, you're just throwing money out the window. You've got to find places to balance that out. Maybe you have your Starbucks every day, but you eat canned soup. I don't, there's ways to get there. Most of these guys also were asked the question, who's more frugal, you or your wife? And most every one of them said the wife. Most self-made millionaires claim that their wife is more frugal than they are. So that's a big part of your factor too. If you ladies who are the professionals, make sure your husband's helping with the budgeting. Here's a pretty big key on this next to the last point here. Typical millionaire has a total annual income of less than 7% of their wealth. This is a big deal when it comes to taxation. It means that 7% of their wealth is subject to some form of income tax, or less than 7%. So how do you make money without paying taxes on it? Well, real estate's one of those things that's really good. Your equity in your real estate can grow, and you don't pay a penny on that until you sell it. If you don't sell it, well, your net worth keeps growing. You can borrow against it. You can have a line of credit to buy other rental properties. I'm not trying to pigeonhole you guys into real estate, but that's the thing that I know best, and that's the area I'm in. So obviously, that's the best thing for me to invest in. It's the thing I know best. If you deal with stocks, or if you deal with, by all means, you need to be growing your wealth in the stock market. That's another great example. Your stock values can go through the roof. As long as you don't sell it, you're not realizing the income, you're not being taxed on it. So you can grow your wealth in many ways without actually paying the taxes on it. I had a great mentor early on. Before I got into construction and all that, in the very early 90s, I was a bartender, and pretty proud of the fact. I actually dropped out of college and started working at a bar. I'm not proud of that fact, but I got an education nonetheless. Some of the best education I got was from my boss, the guy that owned the place. I'll never forget one night, said something about, you're making $3 a pop off of these beers. Maybe it was $1 a pop. You're making $1 a piece off of these, and we're slinging them out as fast as we can go all night long, and you're killing it. He said, no. You think I'm making that's the retail, I've got labor costs, I've got the house, I've got to pay for the building, I've got the lights, I've got, I'm making maybe 25 or 30 cents off of those. You see $1, but I've got to sell 3 of those to make $1. And for whatever it's worth, that really stuck with me. Same is true on taxation in your own lifestyle. Every time you spend that dollar, you've got to make 2 or 3 more, because you're not just making dollar for dollar. You've got to bring in more to put that dollar in your pocket. You've got to pull out the taxes and all the other pieces of the puzzle before that dollar goes into your pocket. So this is another connection to the frugality point, and it goes right in line with this whole less than 7% of their wealth being subject to income. Save it back, don't spend it, let it grow as much as possible. And this is how you're going to get there. This is how you're going to accumulate. And it's exponential. The more money you put back, it's going to bear interest, it's going to grow. You're going to get to the millionaire status. So, nice little follow-up to a lot of those stories they have is why some potential millionaires fail to arrive. I mentioned being brought up a little underprivileged, and a lot of times people use that for their excuse to hoard and buy and spend and make up for it in their own lifetime. I did without long enough. I'm going to treat myself now because I've arrived. Well, it's temporary if you got a mindset like that. It's not going to last. You're not going to make it. The more overconsumption you get involved in, the more gratifying it's going to be. It's going to feel great. So you just got to avoid spending it. They make a point in here that the amount of time that you spend shopping for luxuries should be less than the amount of time you spend budgeting your investments and saving your money. And that seems so simple on the tip, but I mean, how many people spend more time thinking about where they're going to invest their money and how that money is going to go to work for them? It was a nice, I'm going to jump to this one point that I'll skip it later. One of the nice visuals that was shared with me years ago that really stuck was to picture your dollar bills like little soldiers going to work for you, putting them to work, set them out there, send them on their way, let them go do the work, you know? And that involves that mindset of like, okay, where am I sending them? What am I sending them off to do? How are they going to work for me? You know, try to keep little pictures in your head of, you know, little things of how am I going to put this stuff to work? You know, I don't know all the answers, that's for sure. I know that real estate's worked good for me, but there's so many different options out there for you to put that money to. Don't spend it on the thing that's just going to be an immediate gratification. Spend it on that thing that's going to keep giving back over and over and over again, whatever that thing might be. Again, sometimes you got to, you know, outthink the crowd to be able to figure out what the thing is going to be. And that's why we're all here. We're all trying to figure out how to get there. Well, I'm here with you. I'm assuming some things about you guys, but I know you're here because you want to succeed more than you already are. So you shouldn't spend more than 2 times your annual income on your home. That's a tough one. When I heard that one, I was like, wait, that formula doesn't work anymore. That's definitely outdated. I mean, the entry-level house in Murfreesboro these days is around $300,000. So nobody should be buying a house unless you're making 150 grand a year. Nah, I disagree with that. You need to be buying a house, even if it's the most expensive thing that you can barely hang on to, because you don't want to be throwing it into rent. You don't want to be building some landlord's portfolio. I appreciate everybody that does, but you know, you got to build equity. So even though the starting point has certainly been lifted here, and it's incredibly hard to get into that first house, there's not much of a better springboard to amassing wealth than getting your house. You've got to have that first step out of the way. So do that as quickly as possible. I don't care how old you are. Get the house. There are very small situations that renting is going to help you. You know, if there's some greater opportunity that's just around the corner, well, sure, temporary housing can be great. If you know you're a year or two away from a move, okay, throw that out the window. Stick to the cheaper, because you don't want to throw down $20,000, $30,000 into something and then have to pay a realtor to sell it in 2 years. Oftentimes, I tell people when they're overspending on buying a house, you know, should I do it? I say, only if you're going to be here for 5 years or more. It's not a quick turnaround. If you're in this market right now, you shouldn't be moving every 2 or 3 years. If you land something now in this overinflated market, stick there for a while. Your equity will grow. It may go down first, but it will grow. You know, I got introduced into the real estate world, you know, really full-time in 10. I cut my teeth on short sales. Every neighborhood in this town had 15 or 20 houses for sale. They were falling off the trees. You could have a house. Hell, they were even doing, you know, FHA deals where firefighters and stuff could buy a house for a couple of grand. You know, it's just take a house. We got tons of them. We need them off of our books. It didn't last though. Look where we are now. Wish I would have been in a position to have bought 20 or 30 back then. Interest debt, that's something I kind of added in there myself. Oh, wait. Let me back up, guys. I'm sorry. I missed the cars. There's a whole chapter in cars. They go so deeply into the car thing, and they're so outdated with their models and stuff. I gave you one little line. Cars is one of those places where you can blow your money away. And I like a nice car. Don't get me wrong. I got a nice Toyota 4Runner. It's the first car that I bought that was exactly what I wanted. And I'm going to drive that sucker for 10 years minimum. Because it's quality, it's going to last, it's going to stay cool for 10 years. I'm all about it. It's not a status car. Well, maybe it is. It's exactly what I wanted. But I mean, sure, I could have grabbed something nicer. And it's okay actually in my profession because it's expected of me to have that status item. But the biggest point they make in 30 or so pages of drilling you about cars, and especially the millionaire habits of people who have attained real wealth, is, buy that quality that lasts. They recommend that you buy a 2-year-old Mercedes instead of buying, a brand new Ford. Because the quality, that Mercedes diesel is going to be a 300,000 mile car. It's going to last. It's going to keep its status. Whereas, the quick and cheap and mass produced stuff doesn't tend to last. I'm not quoting this stuff exactly the way they probably are teaching it here, but I try to narrow it down there. Just luxury that lasts, and don't buy into the status cars if you can help it. It's tough. We love these little treats. And really and truly, to counter what I'm saying, at least that's a treat that lasts. At least it's not something you're buying over and over and over again. If you're going to stick with the car for 5 to 10 to 12 years, you want it to be good enough. Then the interest debt. This goes back to, why some potential millionaires fail to arrive. I'll use a great example. I like rental properties, and I've got a few, but I sold some really good ones a couple of years ago because I finally sat down and did the math. I didn't realize for a long time when I was buying houses that when you rent a house, you're paying taxes on the gross income, the gross rents. So for example, you buy a house, you're renting it for $1,000 a month, and your house note on it's $800. You're paying taxes on $1,000 a month, even though you're only making $200 a month. So this one, I can't drill home. I don't know. I was in the business for a long time before I finally ever realized this. Nobody ever told me this, but I wasn't making any money. Then when you roll in the taxes, and you roll in the occasional new roof, your insurance, all the carrying costs, mowing the thing. Hell, most of my properties cost me like $130 a month to mow now. You got to do the math on these things. So build your portfolio with whatever assets you can, but you've got to think about all that back end costs. And interest debt is one of those big ones. And I said I sold a few properties. One of the properties I sold was a multifamily. God, the image you have in your head is multifamily's better. Well, no. Multifamily means you got to pay commercial tax rate. So instead of 20% of the value of the assessed value, you're paying on 40% of the assessed value. So you're doubling your taxes. Your insurance goes up because multifamily's more risk. So it's really not that great. Honestly, I'm going to tell you, if you want to buy an investment property, go buy yourself a single family ranch. It's the best place to put your money. Everybody wants a single floor, older people, younger people. They're easy to work on. You can climb on the roof yourself. You don't have to have too much equipment to handle it. One floor, usually you don't have foundation issues as much as 2 or 3 stories. So these little bitty tidbits can make all the difference in your investments. And again, I'm focusing a lot on housing, but it's because that's what I know the best. You can apply the same sort of mindset to other things. I'm sure with any investment, there are those risky investments that have higher fees and higher costs, and there's the easier ones. So you guys are the young professionals. I got a late start having children. I didn't have kids till I was 40, so I've still got young ones at home. And I don't want to cut too far in advance for any of you that don't have children already. But a very big, important chapter in this book is the EOC, Economic Outpatient Care. They're talking about subsidizing your kids. And I touched on that a little bit earlier, but they go way into it. There's a chapter in here, they go way into it about, okay, you've raised your kids and you've helped them pay for this. You helped them get into their first house. You helped their kids do, well, once they leave the house, they're still going to be dependent on you. And if you're a millionaire, hey, there's no problem asking dad to help. He's got the money. He's been helping me all these years. Why the hell now that I'm 18, do I have to cut it off? Let's keep on going. they tell you about so many examples of millionaires who have paid for their kid's house in a fancy neighborhood, and they can't afford it. They're not bringing in enough money. So mom and dad's paying the house note occasionally, paying the taxes, taking care of the roof that just broke. Another one that really hit me. A large percentage of millionaires admitted to paying for their grandchildren's private school tuition. It's not even just your kids. Now you're paying for your grandkids. Well, of course, grandpa's a millionaire. We're struggling. Our kids are having to go to a public school, and grandpa's going, that's not happening. My grandbabies are not going to a public school and getting bullied and harassed. So I'm paying for private school. That was the example they used, and it really hits home. Good God, when do you get out from under it? If you start this economic outpatient care, when's it going to end? It's not. You're going to be paying it for the rest of your life. So the big warning here is, don't let your kids become a leech on you. Don't let your kids be crippled by the fact that you've made good for yourself. And don't let them cripple you because you just wanted better for them than you had. That's not better for them. They need to learn these lessons, and they need to learn how to amass wealth themselves. I'm working on that. I've got an 8 and 11-year-old, and they don't know this yet. They think Dad's got the money. I can ask for it. So we'll see how I get there. But this has been important for me to read again because I didn't have kids back then. There's no guarantees. They talk about how self-employed is everything. 20% of the self-employed or 2/3 of, hell, I forgot the statistic myself. What did we say there when we were back on the self-employed? Self-employed make up less than 20% of the workforce, but accumulate for 2/3 of the millionaires. It doesn't mean you're going to be successful. It's just a great part of the formula. It just so happens to be, but I mean, self-employed is the biggest risk you can take. So you're going to go out there and fight to be recognized. You gotta find your niche. Yeah, and maybe more than once. My first self-employed gig, I was a painter. I did not succeed at that. Fortunately, the hardwood floor gig was good. I stuck with that for 15 years and made something of myself there. But truly, after hardwood flooring, 30 years ago, when I read this book, I'm going to tell you, I was worth approximately zero. I had a house, had no equity. Basically, it was worth what I owed on it because I dumped a bunch of money into fixing it up. 20 years can make a hell of a difference, guys. I love these points. Some of the greatest businesses are intellectual, and therefore portable businesses. Physicians, attorneys, accountants, engineers, dentists, architects, etc. They can move their businesses virtually anywhere worldwide. This was a suggestion in the book. These are great options, and they're great things that to recommend to your children. If you are in a position that you can create a better life for your kids, keep some of these things in mind. Don't set them up for some profession where they might make 15 or 20 grand a year. I mean, it's not worth 6 years of school to head in that direction. It's just simply not, unless you can afford to do it for fun. These are great professions to consider. Of course, beware, the longer they're in school, the longer it is before they save, the higher risk they have for status items. Which attorney doesn't have a nice watch? Scott, you got a nice watch, don't you, man? I love it. I love it. Love it. Top 10 most profitable sole proprietorships include various medical and dental fields. There were a lot of them, so I just said various. But I love the last few: legal services, drugstores, bowling lanes, and coal mining. I mean, keep those in mind too, I guess. Don't ever just count them out. As long as you're the one on top and you're the one that's winning, these are great options. And then there's just a few things here I want to follow up with. I couldn't help but throw in some of my own pieces to the puzzle here. Some things that I've kind of clung to in the last 20 years, sort of based on Millionaire Next Door, sort of based on where I've been. Surround yourself with great people, but don't run too close to the pack. this is something personally that has been a mindset of my own. I mean, you got to surround yourself with good people. You're only as good as the crowd you run in, but don't become invisible inside of that crowd. You have to keep your own personality. You have to find niches that people aren't already exploiting. You know, Gabriel and I used to work at Exit Realty together. We had this postcard a month thing, and they'd send it out, and every single agent in the whole freaking office, 100 and something people, would send out this exact same postcard to our mailing list. Mailing lists are great. It's a good way to get in people's mailboxes, get seen. But why do you want to do the exact same thing that everybody else is already doing? That's not going to accomplish much. It's just not. I started mailing my own postcards with my own thing on it, and I found that it was hugely popular. So all I had to do was tweak one little thing. I'm still paying the same postage. I'm still paying the same printing, but I wasn't running with the pack. I was beside the pack, friends with the pack. I've talked about creating the niche. I got ahead of my notes on that one, but it's still so very true. It's still something, you know, and when I was in hardwood floors, nobody liked doing sand and finish. It was much more messy, much more costly. You had to have more equipment, more gears, more gear. So I specialized in that. If everybody hates it and everybody's moving away from that, that'll be my specialty. And I killed it in that. There was like one other guy in town who was doing a lot of that work. I had one competitor in this whole town when construction was booming. We were doing 7 or 8 houses a week. It's hard work, but it's nice to be successful if you're going to be working that hard. Watch for cycles and patterns in our economy, in the marketplace. I mean, I kind of learned this one after the fact. Back when those short sales were booming, I should have been applying for loans anywhere I could have gotten credit and bought anything I could have, because, you know, even in the last 7 years, we've seen the real estate in this town double, flat out double. The quickest money that can be made is in investments. You just personally cannot go out there and swing a hammer hard enough to ever get past this certain point. So again, other streams of income, it all kind of ties together. And timing is everything. You got to be on the prowl. This one's paid off so many times. I can't tell you how many times at 10 o'clock at night, I'm searching the MLS, seeing what's out there, searching Facebook. I'm on the prowl, trying to find the deals. A week ago yesterday, I found one of those deals. I found someone who was underwater, who was about to lose their place. They owed a bunch of money on their house. They needed out. They had good equity. They were real close to trouble. Fortunately, I work with a title company that is able to close a deal in 1 week. Leslie, thank you. And I bought a condo yesterday. I found out about it a week ago, but I was on the prowl and I was ready. And it's going to make me some money, guys. I should make, well, I won't say. I'll make good money. Manifest your destiny. This is so true. You have to believe that you're going to be successful. Your thoughts will come true. If you believe you're not going to make it, you're not going to make it. I mean, this is just like being on the front lines in a battle. You're battling for your future. You absolutely are going to be successful. All you got to do is put the work in for it. And if you get knocked down, you come back even stronger the next time. Manifest it. Create those thoughts. You know, I love the shoot. I can't think of the name of the movie now, but Annette Bening. She takes off her little thing. She's cleaning up the house. I'm going to sell this house today. I'm going to sell this house today. It's American Beauty. It's a great scene. Old movie. Sorry, I didn't think it was that old. Yeah, I could. Here's one of my favorite ones. I made this one up, and I almost wanted to title this thing this, but we're talking about the millionaire next door. Dinosaurs versus the birds. I want to create a whole speech about this. It's an analogy that's in my head a lot. You know, not everything on this planet died when the dinosaurs were killed out. We still got the birds. There's plenty of prehistoric birds that fly around. You know, we see these blue herons all over town. My point in this is don't build your machine so big that it's consuming so much that you can become extinct if one of the key things in your life gets knocked out. The dinosaurs consumed so much vegetation and so much, they're so huge, such a huge species, they got killed out. So apply that to business. If you're in a business that is solely dependent on tons of other players, one of those players goes out, you're gone. So don't be the dinosaur. You've got to think like the birds. You've got to be consuming very little, as little as possible. You need to be self-sufficient. You need to be able to find what you need. You know, you better be able to live off of a little of nothing if times get lean and not let that take you out. So it's just an analogy that maybe I'll come up with some bigger point with later. Another one of my favorites, I tell this to Beth and Gabriel sometimes, the cream rises to the top. And it's just a simple analogy that is, when I'm too busy to chase all of the work, focus on the best stuff, focus on the stuff with the greatest return. I like to give every single client the exact level of service, but at some point I can't keep up with it all. I'm gonna have to shed some, I'm gonna have to push some aside because the best stuff I've got to take care of first. The people that are like, I'm pre-qualified, I've got 50 in the bank, I want a reasonably sized house, you know, we're going out today. But honestly, the folks that come to me that's like, yeah, I've been looking on Zillow, I don't have any money, my credit's bad, I need a $250,000 house, and I want to go out every weekend until we find one. I don't know that I can help you. I need to focus on these guys over here that are ready. And it's, you know, apply that to any business. Again, I'm using real estate as just an example because that's what I know best. The cream does rise to the top. And those people will keep coming back and over and over again. Never forget, though, some of the best deals I've ever had were because I took care of the little guys, too. I've taken care of people who were not ready. When my time is available, you got to work for them, too, because some of the peons in the world will turn you on to some of the best deals you've ever had because you cared about them, because you didn't just push them aside, because you did take the time out of your life to help them. Oh, careful about burnout. This is one of the last points I'm going to make. I don't want to take up the rest of your day, but when I got started in real estate, somebody told me that you reach your prime in this business in 10 years. And somebody else had told me, you know, you can double every year, double, double, double. I kept that pace. I started off my first year, I maybe made 20 grand the first year I did real estate, not enough to pay the bills. It was not a break-even year. I was still juggling some other stuff on the side. The second year I doubled it, third year I doubled it, fourth year I doubled it. And I was told, this is how you keep going, keep doubling, keep going, keep going. Guys, about year 8 or 9, I'd had it. I couldn't keep up. It was emotionally, it just took its toll, and I didn't want to get up and go to work anymore. I was tired of it. I was sick of it. And I talked to some pros about burnout, and a lot of them said, it's normal. It's natural. You can't just keep doubling and doubling and doubling. It's going to catch up with you eventually. So be prepared for that, or take caution ahead of time and don't let yourself get there. I thought I was taking precautionary measures. I thought I'd be fine. The money's worth it. It's okay. I'll be all right. It got me finally. And honestly, a couple of years ago, I had a really hard time just doing the job. But, overcame it. I thought about my priorities. And obviously, I don't want out. I mean, life is good. I want to keep going. I want to keep building wealth. And I want to retire young. And I want to enjoy it. And make all this pay off and be worthwhile. So just be aware of it and don't let it sneak up on you, because that's going to be the hardest. It's going to do a lot of damage if it sneaks up on you. So at least somebody had warned me that this may happen. But that's my presentation for today.